Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how are we doing today?
Man, playoffs are a great time of the year, man. What a weekend of football we had.
This is a wonderful playoff time, and we have some games to get right into. But before we get into the games, we do have an update about Peyton Hillis. He is off the ventilators after saving his kids from drowning. So we just, Peyton Hillis, we wish you a very healthy recovery, man. It's a good sign.
That is a great thing. I completely forgot that he was taken off ventilators and he was breathing under his own power. But yeah, kudos, good on you, Peyton Hillis. Keep fighting. You are a true hero amongst humans.
Absolutely. So make sure, even though playoffs are still happening right now, make sure you keep thinking about DeMar and Peyton and all the other injured players, the former and current, that are battling with their issues. So, but with that being said, we do have some games to get right into. So let's get right into this wild card weekend, starting with the first game on Saturday, the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers winning 41-23. It was a tale of two halves, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could say that. Seattle, they were up at half, but it wasn't a big lead because as soon as the second half started, that 49ers defense went on a roll, and there was just nothing the Seahawks could do.
Yeah, it was really the tale of two halves. First half, Seattle kept it very competitive, and they were leading, like you said, 17-16 at halftime. And then Brock Purdy and the 49ers just flipped to another gear, and they just never looked back.
Shout out Brock Purdy, man. You are really giving yourself a nickname. Heard it was actually on Shannon's gift. They took the out of irrelevant. He's Mr. Relevant.
He is Mr. Relevant. Mr. Relevant. And what was that? What is their nickname that they're saying to him?
Big Cock Brock.
Big Cock Brock. I love it. So the 49ers have a tough road ahead, and we'll get to their opponent next. But let's move on to the second Saturday game, which was honestly, we thought the 49ers game was good. This game was even better. The Jacksonville Jaguars upset the Chargers 31-30 in a 27-point comeback.
You want to talk about tale of two halves, my dude? Being shut out at half and then to hold the Chargers just 3 points in the second half. That defense locked up and they played pretty freaking unbelievable.
Oh my God. I will say, and you and I have said this talking off air, for me, this is the biggest win in the Jaguars franchise history.
I can't help but agree more.
This is the absolute biggest win because think about it. That one game, that playoff game against a high caliber opponent in the Chargers, and our entire perception of Jacksonville changed overnight in that one game, in that one half. And it was absolutely incredible. And shout out to the Jags. Shout out to Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. You know where they celebrated after that win?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence and his skill guys, they went to Waffle House.
Yep.
Good for him. He's that guy.
He's that guy, man.
Shout out Trevor Lawrence. Fun fact, he's undefeated on Saturday.
That is true.
He's undefeated on Saturdays, which is really funny to think about.
His high school, college, and
NFL career, he's undefeated in Saturday.
Correct me if I'm wrong. College, they mostly play on
Saturday, except for the championship games.
Yep.
Or Friday nights.
Yeah,
that's the
but mostly Saturdays.
Mostly Saturdays.
Yep.
So good on you, Trevor Lawrence.
So with that, the Jags move on to play against the Chiefs next Saturday in the divisional round. So let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills getting it done 34-31, but this was a closer of a game than any of us expected.
Yeah, Miami, I'm going to say it outright. If Tua was starting, Buffalo would not have won that game. There should be a lot of reason for concern for Bills and Bills fans. Yeah, they're moving on, but they did not push through Miami like everyone thought they were going to. They got pretty beat up in Miami, and I'm going to say it again, that elbow injury on Josh Allen is really showing. So they're going into Cincinnati now, or Cincinnati's coming to them, and it's going to be a showout. You need to put points on the board for Buffalo.
Yeah, I think, honestly, for the Bills, we're going to get more into the Bills later on in this episode because, like you said, they have a matchup against Cincinnati, and that is the game that was supposed to be played, and rightfully so, it's going to happen. But I will say this was a very admirable game by the Dolphins. Their defense showed a lot of promise. Although they gave up a lot of big plays, but they were very opportunistic on defense. I want to give a shout-out to Jamie Phillips, number 15 on the Miami Dolphins. He's their edge rusher. But he's so versatile that they put him all over the box, man, and he was a terror against Buffalo that day. So
he was the one that got the strip sack fumble for the comeback lead, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So
just making sure.
Yep. He a great game by the Dolphins. A good win for the Bills. But Miami Dolphins, I'm very interested to see what happens in the offseason.
So the one thing you and I disagree, I don't think that was a good win for the Bills, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. We'll get more into the Bills. But let's move on to the midday game on Sunday. The New York Giants getting it done over the Minnesota Vikings. I know. And it was a great game, 31-24, in what looked to be Daniel Jones' best career game as a Giant. He looked absolutely phenomenal. He is the first player in NFL history to throw for 300 yards in the playoffs and run for 70 yards.
Yeah, no, he made history.
He was unbelievable.
But the one thing that I really have to say, that 3-yard pass on 4th and 8 from Kirk Cousins on the Vikings, that may have been the worst play call decision I have ever seen in the playoffs. You know, that was such poor decision making lost them that game. One first down, you could just spike the ball and then you keep going.
Well, you know what it was? For that to end the Vikings season, I guess was fitting because no one really took them that seriously, or it's like, as much as we thought as good as they were, and they were good, but they were never good enough to really push it, or to push it enough to be like, okay, whoa, the Vikings are a dominant team. Most of their wins were one-possession games. They never really dominated a team and really controlled a lot of games. And honestly, the Giants had an early lead, and even though it was tied 24-24, the Giants had control of this game. They were the ones that dictated this game, and it was a great win by the Giants. And the Giants move on to play the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round next Saturday. So that is going to be a fun game to watch. But let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game, where it was my Ravens losing to the Bengals 24-17. Oh my God, this was painful.
Yeah, but rightfully so. I say this from the bottom of my heart. You guys had no business being on the field with Cincinnati. You guys got there. Cincinnati, again, they're primed for a Super Bowl run. Again, you guys made a playoff game. Tyler Huntley is nothing but a mistake.
That's why, again, I can't help but say he's the Diet Lamar. And as much I agree with you with Tua and the Bills, where like that game, maybe the Dolphins wouldn't have won, but it would have been different. I think this game against Cincinnati would have been so different if we had Lamar playing.
Yeah,
it would have been a totally different game. But the turning point of the game, where it was tied 17-17 in the fourth quarter, Ravens were driving down the field, got to the goal line, and Tyler Huntley tried to leap the ball over the offensive line. And number 55 for the Bengals, Logan Wilson, popped it right out, and Sam Hubbard picked it up and ran it.
98 yards.
98 yards, yeah.
It was like the longest fumble return for a touchdown in playoff history.
And from that point on, that was the shot right in the heart for the Ravens. And you know what it was? It was painful because I knew this was going to happen. And I knew that we were going to lose to the Bengals because, again, without Lamar, we're a completely different team. And because Tyler Huntley just obviously, he's good and respectable. He's an NFL player, but at the same time, our team is not meant for him to run the offense. No. It is meant for Lamar. It is like specifically tailor-made for Lamar. Right. And so, Huntley was suitable, and we had some good players from our skill position players, like was it DeMarcus Robinson, number 10? He was very good. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, they were all great. Mark Andrews getting it done too. But ultimately, it's not meant for Huntley. It's meant for Lamar. And so, look, as a Ravens fan, uh, I do think Lamar, is worth the amount of money he's asking for because he brings so much value to our team. He means a lot to our team.
Right.
So I think is our responsibility as a team to sign him and pay him what he's worth, and obviously seeing what we look like without him, he's definitely worth a lot.
Yeah, no, he's worth almost everything to your team.
So with that being said, Ravens, get your shit together because otherwise it's going to be a long off season.
Yeah.
So we'll get more into Lamar's contract, whether we find more about, get more news, more updates if anything happens. Believe me, we'll let you know. we will let you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, the Bengals move on to play the Bills in the divisional round. So this is going to be a fantastic game to watch.
Yes.
So let's move on to the final game of Wild Card Weekend. On the Monday night primetime game, the Dallas Cowboys getting it done over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 31-14. It was all Dallas all game, and Tom Brady goes home. And maybe was this his last game in Tampa?
Yes, 100%. This was his last game in Tampa. This may have been his last football game. He said he's going to take it day by day. I watched that post game interview, and it all said, "Fingers says I'm out of Tampa." He goes, thank you. He told every media there, he goes, thank you guys for everything that ever since I've been here. I appreciate the way you guys have always helped. He's talking past tense now.
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking present tense while being a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He goes, this is while I was here now. I will not be here next year. So
I don't think he definitively said that.
No. But that's the tone of his voice is insinuating I will not be here next year. Because he's talking in past tense.
I think, what it is he, and this is just how I see it, because football has been his life for 20 odd years. And so he's lived more than half his life as a football player. So the game means something to him. And once he retires, once it's gone, he'll never be able to come back. So I think he's trying to get as much of the game of football as he can. And I think personally, he's probably going to go to a team on a 1-year deal, a team that he thinks that is just kind of ready and primed to go. Vegas is very possible. Vegas is on the table. Maybe the Niners, depending on how the playoffs go. There's a few. I know. Was it Miami, Vegas, and the 49ers are all? It's all on the table. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. Believe me, the Tom Brady saga will not end just yet. But when it does, it will. If this is to be his last game, then this was a very interesting game for him to go out on.
You see, and even I was guilty of calling out, playoff Tom Brady. Everyone talks about how he has more playoff wins than most of the league. But when you think about playoff Tom Brady, you got to also think about this season. He's 45-year-old Tom Brady. And that Tampa Bay Buccaneers only averaged 17 points this entire year.
They only scored 24 or more points twice this entire year.
Right. So to score 14 points, it's true form. And we've been saying it for a couple of years now. When Dak plays the way he did, shout out to 4 touchdowns, Dallas is one of the hardest teams to beat.
He passed for 4, ran for 1.
So, 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns.
So, when he plays like that, and that defense is what it is, Dallas is a Super Bowl team.
And they have a tough battle ahead of them because they play the 49ers next week, Sunday night primetime. Of course it's Sunday night primetime because they're going to – Dallas always gets the primetime slot.
It's always Dallas.
But man, let's we have a lot of great divisional games to look forward to this weekend. So with that being said, let's start it on Saturday, 4:30 p.m., Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Ooh, man.
Tall order going into Arrowhead, man.
I know
the divisional round, but I'm excited for this game.
Tell me, why are you excited for this one?
Because the high that Jacksonville must be on, coming from such a comeback, Kansas City has had a week off. Momentum versus rest. I would usually take momentum, but again, it's such a hostile crowd going into Arrowhead in the playoffs. Any time of the year going into Arrowhead, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
But to go in the divisional round, where you guys are going for yet another AFC Championship run, Jacksonville's going to have their their skills to put to the test. But you look at Trevor Lawrence at just how calm, cool, and collected that man is when he is playing at his worst. Any other quarterback that throws 4 interceptions in a first half, you can almost best believe they will not be playing that second half. The Jaguars have some trust in Trevor Lawrence, and he has some respect in that locker room that is almost unprecedented, I feel. For him to say, hang on, coach, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And for the coaches to accept that and be like, all right, let's go see what you can do, and you come back and you win a fucking playoff game like that, there's got to be such a feeling as a coach, like, I'll never not trust this kid again.
Mm-hmm.
So if he comes to you and he tells you, listen, I'm not going to lose on Saturday no matter who I'm playing,
mm-hmm.
seeing how he hasn't in his entire football career, you can almost trust that this kid's going to play his best football for you going into no matter what game it is. So there's a lot of positivity coming from Jacksonville going into this game.
There is, and like I said before, like this was the biggest win by the Jags in their entire franchise history. They've had some big wins before. Don't get me wrong, but I think you know what it is being that Trevor Lawrence this is his second year, and he had a momentous playoff win against a highly competitive team in a game where they could have easily lost. They could have easily just folded up and called it a season. But no, they showed, as you said before, resilience. They showed perseverance. And they showed a really promising future of who they are as a team where it's like, look, we are not out of this because we have that guy. We have that guy. We have that guy that looks like Jar Jar Binks. Like we have that guy.
Jar Jar Binks with a mop on his head.
Pretty much. But nevertheless, it's like so long as we have him, we're never truly out of a game.
Right.
And that's it's funny that they share that feeling going into Kansas City because that's exactly what the Chiefs feel with Patrick Mahomes, where it's like they always believe that they are never out of a game. They can always, so long as they have that quarterback on the field, they are always in a game, no matter what the score is. And 27-point comeback, that was the third largest comeback in playoff history.
Yes.
Which was crazy to think about. That was, I think, it tied the Chiefs-Colts game a couple of years ago, about a decade ago, where with Andrew Luck making the comeback against the Chiefs.
Ironically, that was in the divisional round.
That was the wild.
That wild card.
I believe that was the wild card weekend. Yeah,
okay.
But even still, that was a wild game too. This was a wild game just as well.
Is that with Alex Smith's Chiefs team?
Yes.
Okay. Sammy Watkins.
No, Jamal Charles.
Okay.
Jamal Charles'
final year in Kansas City.
I think one of his last years in Kansas
Okay.
City. But nevertheless, this Jacksonville Kansas City game, this is going to be a great game to watch, and I think no matter who has the lead, I think whoever's down you don't count them out by any means. But I will say this, though. There's a few matchups in particular that I'm really looking forward to. So when the Jags have the ball, look on the Chiefs defense. There's a few players you need to keep your eye out for. Number 95, Chris Jones. He is the heart and soul of that Chiefs defense, and he's right on the line. He is going to get in Trevor Lawrence's face all day. Can the Jags stop him? Chris Jones had a phenomenal season this year. He had for a D tackle, like he had one of his best years, and quietly too, because we don't think of the Chiefs as a defensive team. But when the Chiefs, they can give up big plays, but when the defense is clicking, they're fierce. They are a fierce team because they know it's like, hey, look, we need to make stops because if we make stops, we're still in this game, and Mahomes will get us out of it.
Yeah,
and so Also, I would say number 22 or 25, Trent McDuffie, the rookie cornerback. Since he's come back from injury, he's been playing phenomenal as a cornerback, as their second cornerback, and as a rookie too. So another name to consider is Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator. Spags for the Chiefs. He is a blitz-heavy defensive coordinator that he is going to bring the heat on Trevor Lawrence all game. So let's see. I'm really curious to see how Lawrence is able to withstand this heat that's going to be brought by this Chiefs defense.
Yeah, but to go off your point, I'm going to cut back for the versatility for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, that may be the best word to describe the Jacksonville Jaguars as a franchise. When you think of everything that they went through when it comes to losing Calais Campbell off of a bonehead decision from the general management, getting rid of him, I will always think that's a bonehead decision. Then you hire Urban Meyer. And then you go through the embarrassment that was Urban Meyer, the first coach to ever be fired mid-season. And then, again, it's a slow growing pains with Trevor Lawrence. However, 2 years you're in the playoffs. The first season was pretty painful to watch. This season, he's a whole different player. So you're seeing that come more with quarterbacks where it's 2 years we're in the postseason, 2 years and we're ready to go. That's it. But that also comes with all these kids that are coming in after their sophomore year of college. First year eligibility, they're putting their name in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the 4-year guys who were seniors in college when they came out ready to play. Jalen Hurts, he was a senior in college.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how he came out as soon as he was ready to play. His team just didn't invest it, unfortunately. But he was ready to go out the gate. So these 2 years in the pros could have very well been 2 years in college. So this could have very well been his rookie season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These kids are so young going into these games. But you want to talk about defense showing up? Last week, Jacksonville made that a name for themselves on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Holding Justin Herbert and that offense that is full of power to 3 points in the second half is something unbelievable. The X factor here is Andy Reid. That is the X factor here.
Mm-hmm.
The Jaguars are not playing the head coach of the Chargers or the offensive coordinator of the Chargers, who has since been fired,
Mm-hmm.
Lombardi. They're playing one of the best coaches of all time.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tall order going into the playoffs playing Andy Reid. That defense is going to have one of the most organized game on the other side facing them,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. The Chiefs are so organized when it comes to what they just know what to do at any given point. And that's why you can just never count either of these teams out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Andy Reid, because I will say we got to also talk about how Doug Peterson really has done a great job for the Jacksonville Jaguars as head coach this year. And I know we consider Brian Daboll to be coach of the year, but as a shoo-in, but maybe we also have to consider Doug Peterson too.
There's a couple of coaches that you should consider for coach of the year.
But specifically for the Jags to turn them around as a franchise and them to be like, okay, look, he's a made man. He has a vision for this team. He has the quarterback that we want to invest in, and he's willing to invest in him. And we won a huge playoff game. And we wouldn't think the Jags as a versatile and resilient team if they didn't get that win over the Chargers. Our whole perception of them has completely changed because of that game last week. But I do want to get into that coaching matchup in particular. Andy Reid and Doug Peterson, that's a great matchup for one another. It's actually master apprentice.
Right.
Doug Peterson used to be on Andy Reid's coaching tree before becoming the head coach in Philadelphia. He was, I believe, the offensive coordinator before Eric Bieniemy. Mm-hmm. So Doug Peterson knows how Andy Reid is, and Andy Reid knows how Doug Peterson is. So these coaches are going to be they're going to throw everything at each other. I would expect to see a lot of creative plays from both the Chiefs and the Jags on offense because there's no holding back at this point. And these teams did play earlier on in the season. I believe like week 9 or 10 they played, and the Chiefs won. I believe it was 27-15, just around that score or so. Ultimately, turnovers. Turnovers is what killed the Jags. But I would expect both teams, like, this is going to be one of those games where whoever has the ball last is going to win. And that's how I see it happening. And whether it's going to be Mahomes or Trevor Lawrence, they're more than capable of getting it done.
Okay. So, Halpin, I'm going to ask you.
We're getting right into it. Who
you got?
Oh, man. I'm going with the Chiefs. I think that Andy Reid is 26-4 coming off a bye week, and that is including playoffs. So, I do think that whoever has the ball last is going to win. I think this is going to be a one-possession game, but ultimately, the Chiefs and Mahomes, they just look unreal when they are clicking on all cylinders. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. Who you got?
I've been tossing this game up since Jacksonville was won. But you know what? I'm going to play the devil's advocate in here, man. I'm going to go Cinderella story, and I'm going Jacksonville.
You go with Jacksonville?
I am. I'm going Jacksonville. There's something about sending a message in the playoffs, holding a playoff team to 3 points in a half of football, and coming back and having an offensive slaughterfest with 4 TDs in a half of football that you just can't bat your hat, that you can't turn away from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you turn that into a 4-quarter game, you're holding any team back. It doesn't matter. You know, so I'm going to play devil's advocate on that
one. Okay. I respect it. Hey, if the Jags could beat the Chiefs, that will be an even bigger game for the Jags franchise history. That will be, to them, considered their Super Bowl.
That will be their Super Bowl, right?
It would be a monumental win for Jacksonville history. But that's going to be such a great game to watch.
Oh, I can't wait.
I can't wait either. But let's move on to the second game on Saturday. The New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles, round 3.
Hey, you want to talk about having fun with the playbook? How about Danny Jones bringing out the Statue of Liberty?
Ooh, oh, my God.
Danny Jones.
I cackled so hard when they did that.
Danny Jones bringing out the Statue of Liberty. For those who are unaware of what the Statue of Liberty actually is that wonky-ass play that he decided to pull where he faked the throw and put the ball behind his back for the handoff. That is a college move that everyone knows as the Statue of Liberty. And it's only fitting that the New York Giants pulled it.
It went for 1 yard, but
either way, it happened.
But it still happened.
You saw it in the playoff.
But you know what that means? They're getting creative. Yeah. They're getting very creative as a team, and
they're having fun.
I was thoroughly impressed by Daniel Jones against the Vikings. Now, granted, the Vikings' defense is not that good, and Philly's defense is going to be hellacious. Oh. But my God, I was so impressed with Danny Dimes that game. It was easily his best game as a pro. He looked unstoppable. He looked just unbelievable. It looked like it was Josh Allen. It looked like it was Josh Allen or Mahomes or Burrow, like those quarterbacks that are mobile, can get out of the pocket, run for a first down if need be. If not, we're going to sling it deep and we're going to hit it. And man, the Giants were hitting on all cylinders against the Vikings. When I saw them against the Ravens in October, they did not look like this.
No, they did not.
They did not. I still saw a playoff team, but I saw a very conservative playoff team.
Not aggressive like this.
The Giants were hellacious. They were aggressive, and I loved it. It was so great to see. And if we're going to get those Giants against this Philly team, Oh my God, this game is going to be on fire.
It's gonna be a heavyweight match, man. It's crazy to think that in a span of a couple weeks, the Giants went from question marks to back to what they are, which is a heavyweight in this league. Like, because I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and he goes, they have a formula and they lost it for a while. But Brian Daboll has brought it back, where it's you focus on your defense, you have a couple of pieces on offense, and you have a quarterback that can distribute the ball. Their issue for a long time was not having a quarterback. The final years of Eli was a mess, and then it came into Geno Smith for a little while, and then it was Daniel Jones. So, but Daniel Jones has finally come into himself. With that performance, I feel he's earned himself at the very least a franchise tag. We were saying all year he's kind of not the guy for New York. He's kind of shutting that up. That game kind of shut it up. I feel like he needs to do it again. That's why he's going to get a tag.
Mm-hmm.
If he does this again next year, it will be an extension year for him. And that's when the Giants can really start looking at themselves as we can make a Super Bowl run. I don't think they're going to get past Philly this week. I think Philly is primed and ready to win a Super Bowl right now. Jalen Hurts having an MVP year. Daniel Jones had an MVP game. Jalen Hurts having an MVP year. And he has seasoned weapons, A.J. Brown, coming up, reviving his career. I'm going to give him every shout-out he needs this year because, again, he's a complete and total revival.
Mm-hmm.
Devonta Smith is out of his fucking mind when it comes to being a receiver. And that defense, since the waiver wire, when they picked up, I think it was 3 pieces for their front 7, 2 D tackles.
Well, they got Robert Quinn from the Bears. I know that.
Mm-hmm. They got a couple. I think they got 1 or 2 other guys. They've just been on a different level of hellacious, and that offensive line on the Giants is still a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They play great when they need to. It's not a consistent 4 quarters of good football for them.
Yeah. A few things real quick. I think that when you said that they had their identity, the way they lost their identity was their defense.
It was.
Their defense. It wasn't so much their offense. Their offense, they were capable of score points, but their line was horrible. The offensive line was horrible, but their defense kept giving up points. This defense for the Giants has, again, it's kind of like the Bengals defense where you can't really think of any stars in particular, but they played very well together. Much like
Detroit's defense.
Like, a
couple of years back.
Couple years back. But the Giants have a great defense now because of a lot of great young players. Kayvon Thibodeau.
I'd say Thibodeau. I think it's Thibodeau.
Kayvon Thibodeau, number 5 on the Giants on the defensive line. Believe me, you will see a lot of him on Saturday.
He's everywhere.
But honestly, my favorite player for the Giants, man, is number 20, Julian Love, the safety. Now, when the snap of the ball happens, he will not be on your screen. He's going to be back. But he plays the safety position so well that it's like, to me, I can't keep my eyes off him because he's one of the smartest players on the Giants team. And it reminds we talked about this before, where it kind of is that formula of a great pass rusher alongside a great safety, where it's like you force them to throw, and then they're going to have an opportunistic safety be like, yoink, I'm going to take that. Yeah. Like we compared it to Brian Dawkins and Trent Cole when that combo was together, and there's a lot of good safety. Cam Jordan, Darren Sharper. Or Vilma and Sharper at the time. But nevertheless, it's the Giants have a great defense, and that's what's really keeping them alive in games where it's like they're just not going to give up. They're nothing cheap, nothing easy. If you're going to beat us, you're going to do it on 8-play drives, and we're going to make every down the hardest down you're going to get.
Yeah.
And they're going to really challenge Philly, and I would not be surprised if the Giants come out with an early lead in this game because, again, Philly's a little rusted a little bit. They're rested but rusted. Jalen Hurts, his right shoulder, is still a little battered and stuff. But this is probably the healthiest it's going to be from here on out going forward. Yeah. So, but I know obviously the Giants players is like, hey, look, his shoulder is glowing red. We gotta tackle that shit.
Right. We gotta hit him, and we gotta hit him hard. But I'm gonna give a shout out to Brian Dable real quick. That man has earned the nickname of the quarterback whisperer, and for good reason. We talk about what's happening right now in New York with Daniel Jones. Backtrack to when he was an offensive coordinator. What team was he on?
The Bills.
And who did he rein in to have a career low in interceptions?
Josh Allen.
And what's happened since he's off the Bills?
He's slinging that ball, man.
He's second place in interceptions. He has the second most interceptions in the league.
He also has a lot of fumbles. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but he does have a lot of fumbles, right, too.
And then you look over again at the Giants, and you look at Daniel Jones. He knows how to rein in and mature quarterbacks in a very quick rate.
Well, just to piggyback off that, consider this. We all thought Daniel Jones as a turnover machine.
Turnover machine before Brian Daboll came in.
Yep.
And now you look at Josh Allen, it's almost like he is a turnover machine without him. So he knows how to tighten the screws and make the machine run better, more efficiently. So he knows how to pull back the strings that need to be pulled back and let it ride versus let them just go off the chains and be what they want to be. Mm-hmm. He really hats off to him on maturing Daniel Jones in the matter of the season.
Yeah, I honestly, again, when we think Brian Daboll, he's probably coach of the year. But what does it mean to be coach of the year? It's not the coach with the most wins. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that. It's more so the coach that has really improved the team that he's been on. Like I said last segment, Doug Peterson should be in that conversation because of how we think of the Jags now. But obviously Brian Daboll, because now our perception of the Giants, it's like, holy crap. These guys
They're back.
They're back. they're absolutely back, and I do want to see this success in New York happen again next year. I don't want this to be a 1-year thing for Brian Daboll and the Giants because the Giants look good. They look real good, and I'm curious to see what their plan is with Daniel Jones after this season. I think if Daniel Jones were to win this game against Philly, they're going to extend him no matter what. I think it's like, hey, look, you bring us to an NFC title game. You beat Philly.
Yes.
You beat Philly, our arch rivals.
In round 3 in the playoffs.
Round 3, we will extend you. Like, we believe in you. Because right now, Philly is, again, they have been dominating this whole season. Right. They blew out so many teams. They put so many points on the board in so many different ways because they have so much talent. And they've been so dominant. Shout out to Nick Sirianni for the head coach for the Eagles because he knows. He's like, hey, look, this is his second year as the Phillies head coach, and he's like, look, I know exactly what we can do, what we can be, and this is what Philly can be. They can be an absolute juggernaut where no one wants to face them. But the Giants, they're going into Philly, and they're not blinking. No, they're not blinking. And there's a reason why they're calling it the NFC Beast this year.
Well, yeah, that's because 3/4 of the division is still in the playoffs.
But just to think, it's like, man, for the Giants and Philly to have round 3, this is going to be an absolute street fight, and I'm all for it.
I love this game going into Saturday.
So, Chris Palma, I ask you this question: who you got for this game? Who you got?
I'm gonna go Philly. I think the Giants are too new. It's too new for them. Philly, they got a taste of it last year. This year, they're not letting go.
Yeah, but they lost in the first round against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers.
Right. What I'm saying, again, they got a taste of it. Mm-hmm. They made it to the postseason. This year, they're not letting go. The Giants, this is their year to get a taste. They're going to have their playoff win. They're going to lose this week, I feel. And then next year, it's going to be a whole nother ballgame.
It is. I would not expect Philly to be as dominant as they were this year. I am also going to take Philly, but I will not be surprised if the Giants were to upset Philly.
I will not be surprised if they do a second upset.
I would not be surprised if they upset Philly. But Philly, if you are the team that we think you are, you win this game.
Yes.
As hard as it will be, and it will be hard, and the Giants are going to give you their all. And like we said, this is going to be a fight. I'm going to take Philly because it seems that they're destined to have a date with either the 49ers or Dallas. Either way, that's going to be a great game. If they were to play that. But if the Giants are to play either Dallas or the 49ers, my God, man, they have a chance.
Stories of this playoffs.
It's absolutely wild. But you're going with Philly. I'm going with Philly. And that's going to be another phenomenal game to watch.
Yeah. This divisional round is so much fun.
I know. So let's move on to the first Sunday game, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. Woo! This is going to be a game right here.
Yeah, but I feel like this game is going to really take a turn for the worse for Buffalo. Now, I said in our recap that their win against Miami was not a good win because it was not convincing at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't convince anybody that they are still the Super Bowl favorite that they were in the beginning of the year. That injury is really becoming a hindrance to that offense. You can tell because Josh Allen he's forcing the ball down the field. He doesn't have the effortless power that he had the first 5-6 games of the year before he got hurt. Buffalo is really they're going to fall into some trouble because he keeps turning the ball over. Their only saving grace is on Cincinnati. That offensive line is still full of issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have spurts of, they have all-pro lineman potential because of who is there, but they still let up a lot of sacks.
Mm-hmm. I
think Joe Burrow was sacked
4 times against the Ravens.
Mm-hmm. Right. You can't allow that in a playoff game. You just can't.
And our pass rush is not as well developed as we like it to be. But again, that's more to your point of how injured the offensive line is for the Bengals.
No, they just lost their center too last week.
Yeah, so they're without their center, one of their guards, and one of their tackles.
Not good. Not a good play.
No. It's crazy to think about. When we think about the Bengals and the Bills, both their greatest strength as a team is on offense, but yet their greatest weakness is also on the offensive side of the ball. Where Buffalo, they're going, if the only team that could really stop Buffalo is Buffalo by turning the ball over, to your point. Like those interceptions, fumbles, and everything, getting sloppy with the ball is just, you're just asking for a team to stay alive in that game and come back to win. So that's the thing, is like no matter how big of a lead they can get early on, ultimately they just can't help themselves and have teams just ultimately fight back and keep their way in the game. They couldn't put away the Jets until late. They couldn't put away the Dolphins both times until very late. And they had teams hang around. The Chiefs, when they played against the Chiefs, they had the opportunity. The Chiefs had the opportunity to win, but Buffalo intercepted Mahomes, and that was pretty much it. That was a good night. But they still had the opportunity to take the game.
Right. It shouldn't have come down to one play.
And so Buffalo's biggest flaw is their turnovers, specifically coming from their quarterback, Josh Allen. Now the Bengals, their biggest flaw is their offensive line. They can't help they can't help their quarterback stay on his feet. For the better part of the game, he's getting hit, he's getting sacked, and he's getting pressured, and it's really putting a cap on them on offense because it takes away the deep ball. That you don't have that 3 seconds to throw the ball downfield when you have a defensive lineman right in your face at 2 seconds. So it's crazy to think about, like, again, both these teams, their greatest strength is their offense, but their greatest weakness is also on their offense.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see, which flaw kind of cracks more under the pressure, because these defenses, they're kind of the same. There's not really, with the absence of Von Miller, there's really not a lot of stars on the Bills. I mean, they're not big household star names like Ed Oliver. Like, no one's really going to remember him too much. But
the only one that comes to mind in Buffalo is Tremaine Williams.
Tremaine Johnson, you talking about?
No, Tremaine Edmonds. Sorry.
Edmonds, yeah.
His brother's on the Steelers. We're trying to actually recruit him at the moment.
Oh, okay. Tremaine Edmonds. Was it?
Isn't Micah Hyde still there?
He's hurt.
He's hurt, right?
He's hurt. Jordan Poyer.
Yep.
Trey White. Is it Trey White? The corner.
Tre'Davious White?
Tre'Davious White. Yeah, Tre'Davious White. Yeah. And what was it? Kyer Elam had a pretty big game last week against the Bills. Against the Dolphins. But both defenses are good. And, we named some Bengals players as well. Logan Wilson, Jesse Bates, Sam Hubbard. They're all, they're not household names. But, again, they play well together. They're a unit. And both defenses are units. And they're just kind of going to be a mirror to each offense. It's like, okay, like, look, we're not going to break, we're going to bend, but whatever harm that's going to come from this game, it's going to be on whatever offense is doing. If the Bengals can't stop the pass rush, Joe Burrow's in for a long day. If Josh Allen can't help but turn the ball over, the Bills are going to be in for a long day.
But I kind of feel like both of those things are going to wind up happening, where
it is.
Cincinnati's Joe Burrow's going to have a rough day. It's just what's going to happen until they find out what's going on with their offensive line coach. At this point, you have all pros on your line. This stuff has nothing to do with the players on the field now.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, you could kind of make an assumption that it was the players on the field. They were not good enough. Like, they just weren't. They didn't want to. They couldn't stack up to what was needed.
Mm-hmm.
They still made a Super Bowl with that.
Yep.
So Cincinnati kind of proved that last year you no longer need an offensive line to win a Super Bowl. You don't need an elite offensive line.
Not elite.
To get there. You may need one to win.
You definitely do need one.
You need one to win, yes. But now they have the potential for an elite offensive line with the power that they have, barring the injuries that have happened. Yes, they're hurt going into this game. But over the course of the year, even with that so-called insurance policy, he was projected to be sacked over 100 times at one point.
Mm-hmm.
That's on coaching. That's on coaching, conditioning, and fundamentals. Yes, you're a professional player. You're a veteran. You're an all-pro. It still shows when you look at the side. You look at the bench and you watch the players on the bench. What are they doing when their coach is there? They are like this, looking and not blinking. They are paying attention to their coach. Every player knows the way you are coached, it's how you play. You can be the best player in the world. If your coach does not coach you correctly, you will suffer. Mm-hmm. Look at Devontae Adams and the Raiders, just a good example.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best receivers in the league. Playbook is faulty. Coaching is faulty. He did not have a great year.
Or on the flip side, look at Doug Peterson and Brian Daboll.
Correct. Look at the flip side.
Matters.
Coaching
Mike
matters.
Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin. I'm going to throw his name in half for Coach of the Year, going from 2-6 to 9-8. But that's just there. So it's once they have to get that under control. I feel like they need a new offensive line coach. And once that happens and they find one that can mold well with the playbook, the scheme, and the players on the roster, Cincinnati is going to turn into a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Once they can plug those holes with healthy guys who aren't seasoned veterans, with young enough people that are young enough to grow and adapt to the entire nature of Cincinnati and the energy that is trying to come out of them, they're really going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I agree with you. And, for the next couple years, they just need offensive line. Just fucking gather them like it's drugs. Just get as many offensive linemen as you can, like they're running out and going on sale or whatever you can, because without that, without a great offensive line, Joe Burrow is going to not sustain as your quarterback in the future going forward. And I know you said last week that the Bills did not play well, and they didn't. They really did not play well. But the Bengals also did not play particularly well last week. I want to throw this out there. Last week, Joe Burrow was their leading rusher with 9 yards.
Yeah.
9 yards. So they could not run the ball at all. And I was looking at the Ravens defense. We were playing cover 2.
Okay.
Cover 2. All game. We're playing strict zone, 2 safeties in the back. Kyle Hamilton, man, shout out to Kyle Hamilton because he is a force at safety for the Ravens, number 14. And he's a rookie, too. And he made his name known that game. He, forced some fumbles, made some big hits and stuff. He's been an absolute machine. So shout out to Kyle Hamilton. But, Bengals had 232 yards of total offense. And that was their second lowest offensive output for the entire year. I think if the Ravens played them very well, and obviously we have good personnel, I think the Bills are going to look at that, like what the Ravens did. It's like, hey, look, they gave us the blueprint. We're going to play a lot of zone against this because you know what it is? Think about it like this. When teams do not have good offensive line and you can rush with 4 players on the defense, you leave everyone else in the back on coverage, it's going to be hard to throw the ball. And we've seen it before. We've seen it. Teams do it against Mahomes, especially Tampa in that Super Bowl. They did that, and a lot of teams did that to the Chiefs the following year. And it wasn't until, they got the hang of it and they got a good, healthy offensive line. But it sucks because they're just not healthy. Alex Kappa, the guard for the Bengals, he may come back for this game, but at this point in time, as of this recording, there's no guarantee.
Right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I would not be surprised if either one of these teams win, but I think again, it's going to be much like the Jags and the Chiefs. Who has the ball last?
Yeah, I just want to roll off your point really quick when it comes to the way Cincinnati played against Miami and how Buffalo's going to look at that at against Baltimore.
Ravens, yeah.
Sorry. Buffalo's going to look at that at the blueprint. Yeah, we can play cover 2. But the base of a good cover 2 is an elite pass rush.
Not elite.
You need to get to the quarterback.
You do, but you don't need elite.
You need 1 star, at least, to get to the quarterback, almost at will, for a lockdown cover 2 game. That's what I feel personally. Buffalo doesn't have that.
Not without Von Miller.
Not without Von Miller. So, I don't know. It could go both ways, but I feel the pass rush on Buffalo and the pass rush on Miami are 2 different entities. The pass rush on Miami, I feel, is overall stronger than Buffalo's. Mm-hmm. They're cut from the same cloth, whereas they don't have many huge names, but they play as a unit. They play together. You gave the shout out to what's his name, the one who strip sack fumble on Miami.
Oh, Jamie Phillips.
Jamie Phillips. He's a good base player to go in with this pass rush for Miami. Mm-hmm. Buffalo needs to find that. You're not going to get that at Oliver. You're not going to get that out of the players.
Greg Rousseau.
Right.
I mean, they'll be good enough. I think, you know what it is those guys, those are 300-pound men. They're not fast guys.
No, they're 320-pound guys.
They are strong men, and I think that if any one of them falls on Joe Burrow, holy crap! You gotta hold your breath at that point. But man, this is going to be a wild game, and it seems that it's only fitting that we get the game that was meant to be played,
and it's in the playoffs,
and it means that much more at this point in time for both teams.
So John Halpin, I ask you, who you got?
I got Buffalo all day. I think, again, if they can clean up their turnovers, man, I think Buffalo's good. And I just really want to see that rematch of the Chiefs and the Bills. It just seems that they are just, again, destined to meet in the playoffs.
I'm going to play devil's advocate again here, man.
Oh, man, you're killing me here.
I'm going Cincinnati because, like you said, they got to get those turnovers down. But Cincinnati's a bunch of pests, man. They force turnovers. And they're good at forcing turnovers.
They do.
And to be good at forcing turnovers against a gunslinging quarterback who really has no restraints now since losing his offensive coordinator, it's kind of a bad recipe for Buffalo.
It is.
So I'm going Cincinnati.
But what's worse, the turnovers or the sacks? They're both.
If you can keep the ball on the sack and you can run another first down a couple plays later, keep the ball. It's a longevity thing at that point.
It's just, again, crazy to think their greatest strength is their offense, but their greatest weakness is also
right.
It's
also the Achilles heel.
Yep. So
crazy.
So okay, that should be a fantastic game to watch. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yes.
So let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game. The Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, man, this is going to be a barn burner.
I cannot believe that for the first time in 30 freaking years, we're seeing Dallas in the divisional round.
Well, they made it a couple years ago, but they made it against when Dak beat Seattle in the wild card round. They moved up to play the Rams. That was when the Rams and the Patriots went to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Dallas went to L.A. to play the Rams in L.A., and Todd Gurley just absolutely rolled them over.
The ghost of Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
Oh, the ghost of Todd Gurley.
I expect a very high-scoring game. Out of this game, yes. I think Dak Prescott, now, he played one of his best games as a pro, as we've ever seen. He threw for over 300 yards, had 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, no interceptions. Clean. And you wouldn't have been able to tell because in the first drive, they threw it 3 times and 3 drops to all their receivers. 2 drops by CD and 1 by T.Y. Hilton. And so it's like, oh, man, this is going to be a long game. But no, Dallas, they just kept churning. They kept, having faith in Dak to make his plays. And CD was reliable. Shout out to CD. He had a breakout year this year. And it was very fun to watch him emerge as a number 1 receiver for Dallas. And I think him and Dak have a great rapport between one another. But again, they are, as flashy as Dak and CD are, they are a running team with Zeke and Tony Pollard. Now, they didn't rush for a lot of yards this game against Tampa, but it kept them honest. It really kept their defense on the straight and narrow to be like, hey, look, we can't sell out on the pass because, if Dallas wants to, they could run for over 100 yards and just run us out of the game.
Right.
So, as great as the 49ers defense is, they're going to have a handful. Like, if you plug up the run, you leave up the pass one-on-one. You plug up the pass, then you leave the run. So both teams are in for a really big challenge because both offenses are so dynamic and so versatile because there's so many talented skill position players on both sides.
Yeah, but to roll off of that point, San Francisco, I feel, is the single most versatile team in the league, more so because of player placement. Mm-hmm. There's so many people on the 49ers offense that can play multiple positions at the highest level. Not just play them, and I mean play them well. Where you have Deebo Samuel that can drop back into a running back. You have the tight end,
George
Kittle. He can come in at fullback and run the ball. You have McCaffrey that can go out into the flex and be your Z receiver. You have Deebo Samuel that can also go back out into your fly route. You have Brandon Ayuk that can come down into your running back. You also have Christian McCaffrey that can throw the freaking ball and throw the ball well. And not to mention, again, Mr. Relevant, Brock Purdy. There's one play in particular that really, it blew my mind. It was that 70-yard touchdown pass. I believe it was to
Debo.
Debo.
Yep.
But it wasn't the pass and run. It was the block by Brandon Ayuk that opened the lane.
I know exactly the one you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about. He catches the ball here about 13 yards down the way. You see Brandon Ayuk, he is clenched up with someone driving him into the dirt. And everyone, even Debo's head turned and was like, all right, I'm gone. You saw him check and he goes, okay, that was such an elite block. It's the second level stuff on San Francisco that sets them apart.
Mm-hmm.
Where everyone is moving until it's the play to the whistle mentality. You have a lot of people in this league that once the ball is past you, the play is over for you. Yeah, I'll get in the huddle, I'll talk about it. Not for San Francisco. They play until they're absolutely told you need to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that block right there is one of the biggest blocks of the playoffs. I love looking at lead blocking. I love watching lanes open up. That was one of the best blocks from a receiver I've seen in a very long time.
You know what? That's a really good point because the 49ers, they're one of the best blocking teams in the league. They are very cohesive because everyone at every position knows how to block because they know that anyone in any position can get the ball. So everyone is, like you said, the most versatile team there is. Also, Kyle Juszczyk on the team, which you think he's a fullback.
You can drop down to tailback.
But honestly, he can either drop down to tailback or he can act as a sixth lineman.
Which is nuts.
Which is crazy to think about. And they utilize him so well where, again, he's not scoring touchdowns, but he's blocking well. He's blocking well and opening up the lanes for McCaffrey, for Elijah Mitchell, for Debo, for Brandon Ayuk. And everyone is going to, Dallas is in for a rough time on defense because they're as well as their defense plays, and their defense does play well.
I haven't seen a team like this yet.
Not this season. No, and this is actually the one game.
That's a round one.
That's a round one, yes. I mean, I guess technically Cincinnati and Buffalo, but as well, but that was unfinished. But nevertheless, but Dallas and the 49ers, they did not play each other.
True round one.
Yeah, so they played each other last year. We know exactly how that happened. They played each other in the wild card, and the 49ers won 23-17. Dallas came out in that game flat, very flat in the beginning of the game, and it wasn't until the 49ers had a really big lead that Dallas was like, okay, we got to try to make this comeback. And I think if Dallas gets in that situation again where they fall flat in the beginning, it's going to be that much harder to come back because we know and they know that the 49ers have the firepower to just put up 30 points without a problem. I think this is, since Brock Purdy's there, they've scored over 30 points in a game or something like that. Oh, no, except for the Seattle game. But they've scored a lot of points since him being there.
Yeah, I think they've averaged about 28 points a game.
They put a 38 on Tom Brady.
In his first start ever. I want that one to be
in his first start ever. They put up 38 points on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. You put 41 last week in your first playoff game against a division rival. And
you're 6-0 as a starter.
You're 6-0 as a starter. And the team believes in you. The team believes in Brock Purdy.
I have never seen a locker room form around a quarterback so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Never in my life have I seen that.
They honestly believe it, man. And they
got a lot of thinking to do in San Francisco.
Honestly, I would keep Brock Purdy.
Keep the hot hand heavy. That's what I think. You know that.
Yeah. Keep the hot hand. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so far, but let's not forget he is a rookie. Now there is going to be he will lose at some point.
He will lose.
Yes, and
if he comes off of the loss,
I think it really depends on the defense that he's going against. Because when you think about it, the teams that he's played against, they can't necessarily generate a pass rush very well. And I think that if he were to play now, Dallas can
they
generate
have one of the best pass rushes in the league.
But The thing is, though, what San Fran is going to do to counteract that is spread the field, and you run it on the outside typically, so that those edge rushers have to play more on the outside and not so much in the box, so it lightens up the pressure for your quarterback. Again, you're going to see a lot of misdirection,
A lot of
zone reads, and a lot of play action when it comes to San Fran, and they are going to be a handful for them. But if Dallas does have the key to beating them, it's a pass rush. It's if you can get there, no matter who you are as a quarterback, you can the best of them. If you cannot sustain the pass rush, you're going to get trampled. Like we just talked about with Joe Burrow in the offensive line, that's their big Achilles heel, is not protecting the quarterback. And teams that cannot protect the quarterback, even just for one game,
it could change the entire outcome of your season.
Exactly. And so, but Dallas have the players. That's the thing, is like they have the ingredients to win this game. It's, can they unlock it? Can they really unlock it and get there?
Yeah. That's a really good point when it comes to Dallas. They have the two people that really are the pinnacle points of that Dallas pass rush, Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons.
And DeMarcus Lawrence.
But he's on the tail end of his career. He's an honorable mention.
He is, but he's been
playing great. I'm not going to take nothing away from him, but I'm talking about, personally, Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons are the new focal points of that defense when it comes to that pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to Micah Parsons, he is hyper aggressive. So when you talk about a play action, it's going to be a different form of play action. You're going to see the play action that you're going to see from San Francisco. There's going to be skip pulling. There's going to be pull blocks that are going to come to take him off his freaking legs.
Mm-hmm.
It happened all season where you see him. He'll be lining up on the edge as an outside backer, right? Mm-hmm. His true position's a middle, but he likes playing on the outside. He likes going on the outside shoulder. He comes in, his chest is wide open, leaving him open to really getting pancaked. And it's happened time and time again where he gets bumped on the outside shoulder and he falls completely out of the play. And now he's out. And Leighton Vander Esch, as good as he is, he's almost the complete opposite side of the coin of Michael Parsons, where he's almost a little too conservative, where he'll stand and he'll read the play, but he's half a step late because he doesn't want to over-pursue and be too late.
Mm-hmm.
And with this team in San Francisco, if you are half a step behind, you're going to wind up 10 yards behind because of just how fast they move.
Yeah.
The acceleration on that offense is on a different wave. And you have some beefy boys coming after you, coming to skip pull you, and coming to block you on the second level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get caught with your feet in the dirt, you are probably going to end up with a big guy in your face, and he's not going to let you get off of him. So they both need. Leighton Vander Esch needs to hit the gas early, and Micah Parsons needs to level himself out and not go hyper aggressive this game. He needs to play calm, cool, collected, but play as he knows how to play, and that is aggressive, but not over. He can't over-assume and over-pursue on this team at all.
Mm-hmm.
You can't misstep one bit against San Francisco.
No, you're absolutely right, because like you said, if you're half a step late, you're 10 yards behind, and that's it. I think honestly, one other player that really needs to be on his A game for this one is Malik Hooker, the safety for Dallas. We've seen that when he is on point and he does not allow any deep balls and keeps everything in front of him, it's hard for teams to move down the field. And you're right. The pass rush cannot be over aggressive, but Vander Esch needs to know when to strike, and that comes with film study.
Yes.
That comes with film study, and that comes with discipline and understanding when to make a move and when to make a play on ball as a defender. It starts with film study, and that's why the best players that do it succeed. Both offense and defense.
Yes.
I will say this though, before we make our picks, there is one fatal flaw that I have noticed with Dallas, and that is their special teams unit.
Yes.
Their special teams unit, and for those of you who don't know, the special teams unit is when teams are, it's not the offense or defense on the field, but it's when they kick field goals, when they punt the ball, and kickoff. So those are typically when special teams are in play. This past game, Brett Maher, the kicker for the Cowboys, missed 4 PATs
In a row.
Yeah, he made the last one, but the fact that you missed 4 of them, that's 4 points off the board right there. That's 4 points given that are gone. If those were field goals,
That's 12 points.
that's 12 points off the board. So that's the thing is, and also I did see Tampa did get an onside kick when Dallas knew that they had to get an onside kick, and Tampa still recovered. The special
Good
teams,
point.
the special teams unit for Dallas needs to be cleaned up, and we've said all year, special teams, it is indicative of coaching.
Yes.
It is a reflection of coaching, and the more disciplined teams you see are the better ones on special teams. But the ones that are not disciplined, they shoot themselves in the foot.
Well, yeah, and you can tell that there's always been disciplinary issues when it comes to Mike McCarthy's teams.
Yes.
And that's just the standard, is that there's always some form of disciplinary issues coming from Mike McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be like one of those coaches that's your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember, as a coach, you can't be their friend. You have to coach. These are grown-ass men.
Yeah.
You have to lead them.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll try to lead you, and they'll just completely take advantage. And Mike McCarthy gets taken advantage of a lot.
Mostly by Jerry Jones, but that's,
Jerry Jones is going to double down on this man this year. You watch.
Oh, absolutely he will. Absolutely.
So, John Halpin.
Mm-hmm.
For this game, Sunday, 6:30, Dallas, San Francisco. Who do you have?
I am taking San Francisco. I do think that Dallas, again, I think this is going to be a one-score game. It's probably going to come down to a field goal. But if it does, I trust on San Fran to get the job done more than I would with Dallas. Close games, every point matters. You have to take every advantage you can whenever you can. But I just see San Francisco. They are just the better team on both sides, on all 3 sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams. They just look like the better team. I'm going to go with San Francisco.
Yeah, this one you and I agree on. San Francisco is definitely the better team. But more importantly, like you said, on all 3 sides, they're the more disciplined team. Kyle Shanahan has I'm going to say that he has a higher plateau of respect from the 49ers as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
As a team and as a franchise, Kyle Shanahan has the utmost respect.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McCarthy, he has respect, but he kind of gets taken advantage of, and you see that in overall play, especially when it comes to the special teams, in your point.
Mm-hmm.
So San Francisco is going to move on to the NFC Championship this year. It's just pretty much just a matter of who is going to meet them.
Yeah, well, we're split on the AFC, but we agree on the NFC side.
Well, that's kind of how it's been all year round, where the AFC is just too close to frickin' tell.
I know.
And as the heads of the NFC started to come to fruition, it was like, yeah, you can't not count these teams.
Yes. But all 4 of these games look to be fantastic games. And I look forward to every single one of them.
Me too. All right, guys, there you have it. It's divisional weekend. Some really great games on the board. Please leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Let us know if you agree, disagree with us. If you would like to come on for an interview next year or into the off season, please email, DM either myself or John with your email address, and we will we will set something up accordingly. And we will be here next week to talk about these games and the upcoming championships. Super Bowl is in the air, my friend.
There is a lot to talk about, but man, hey, history is made in the divisional round.
Yes,
so
sir.
We are ready for the games. We hope you're ready, and we will catch you all next week.
Thank you, guys.